And then we have our boomers.
Show me how to do that.
How you do that real quick? Hey, now you say, "Huh? You gonna FaceTime me? You gonna do it?" When I press that button.
Look, I can see her.
What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets React, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we are back with another American reaction. We're super excited about this video, guys. If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down, hit that red subscribe button, and turn on the post notification bell because we're on the road to 50K. And we cannot get there without you guys, all right? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
I have heard African American people say they don't want to be referred to as African. I have heard people there say, I'm not an African, so why are you calling me an African? And then there's a separation that happens, and it's because it's deeply rooted in history. So there's the people who will say, you know, I didn't live in Africa, like she was saying, I'm not from Africa, and I want to separate myself from what I see of Africa because I don't live, because there's a stereotype about living on trees, there's a stereotype about poverty. You know, I know people who, Black American people, African American, whichever terminology a person uses, would refer to an African immigrant living in America as things like African booty scratcher.
Not the booty scratcher, the old classic.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so let's take opportunity right here to, you know, this is our second time doing this type of video. The first time we did it was a wodemaya video as well. So a lot has changed from when we first started reacting to wodemaya's videos, like 2 years ago. So a lot has changed. We have been, you know, enlightened to a lot of perspectives that Africans have on African Americans. So throughout this video, we will be, you know, inserting our take on certain things. And the conversation that he just highlighted at the beginning, I know that I'm going to want to comment a lot on that. Because we talk about that in, you know, some of our reactions. So I'm really interested to see how this conversation goes. The last one was a little negative. So I'm really interested.
Yep, so we're going to dive into it and let's see what we can get out.
What's your name and what do you do? Let me start from here, dog. What's your name and what do you do?
My name is Ivy Prosper. I'm a media professional, so I produce documentary film, I present, which is TV hosting. I write, I do public speaking. I actually wrote a book that was recently published called Your Essential Guide on Moving to Ghana.
You're going to give us the link so that people can buy your book.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. And what about you?
So my name is Ama Bwadje. I am the founding curator of the Afropo.
Wow.
So we are trying to connect diasporans and Africans around the world to do business and make money.
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
What?
I'm not music. I work with the Afropo and I also have my clothing brand called the Queen's Clothing.
Wow. And lastly?
My name is Brigitte Perini. I am an associate producer with Refine Creative. I'm a producer of documentaries.
Wow. It looks as if what a much.
This is a nice group of people that we have here. These people doesn't sound like they're just, you know, people off the street. You don't know their backgrounds. These people sound like they're educated individuals.
Right.
That they are planted in their communities, that they are, you know, contributing to the community.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have some intellectual conversations.
Yeah, they sound real goal oriented. Sound like they have a purpose. Sound like they have a vision. And they're really pushing forward. And I think he grabbed a phenomenal group of women. So I think we're going to also have some good intake on these conversations.
Yes.
I'm so lucky today. I'm the only guy sitting here with 0 degrees knowledge, man. I don't have anything in my head. I don't know who an African American is. I thought, oh, since we are black, we're all Africans. So this year is actually an exciting year for Ghana, the year of return. I want to know, you've been to America before, right?
Yeah, I
actually lived in African Americans.
I actually lived in America before.
What about you?
Oh, yes.
time, yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
You flew with African Americans before?
Yeah.
Wow. So which means that you need to educate us, we Africans, especially those of us who have never traveled before, those of us who have never mingled with African Americans before. What are you going to tell us about African Americans? Somebody out there don't know who an African American is, right? Can you tell us what you think of African Americans, first of all?
I will say that the term African American is a very heavy term. It can mean, for example, for some people, the child of an African immigrant.
Okay.
It can mean the descendant of a slave. It can mean someone who emigrated from the Caribbean. In America, African American covers a lot of things, but it's also a very sort of difficult, emotionally word, right? There are some, Black people who live in America who maybe don't feel connected to the continent. They don't feel connected to Africa, and so it can be kind of difficult, right? Like, why are you calling us African Americans, but white people are called white, right? On the census, they're called white Americans. Why are we being called African Americans when we actually didn't descend directly? As in, like, my mother is an African, my great grandmother doesn't know where she's from in Africa. So it can be a hurtful term. On the other side, for some,
Before she go in,
Woo!
I just have to say this, and I have to say this because we were discussing this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
My great grandmother is 90 years old. She's still living. Slavery wasn't outlawed until 67 years before she was born.
Yeah.
So think about that. When there's these people who say that they don't know where their ancestry comes from, I do know a part of mine. So when we have people who don't like the term African American, it just depends on the person. For myself, I know who I am. I know that when it all comes back to, the beginning of the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's, I guess, two people, one from my dad's side, one from my mom's side, who came from Africa. So I don't necessarily have a bad feeling about the term African American because I know where I come from. I don't know the tribe or whatever, but I know I'm Black. Okay?
I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
And I do feel, I guess it has to do with me being from the South. And y'all hear us on the channel always talking about the South,
Mm-hmm.
always talking about, food and culture and all of that. If you know about the history of America, United States of America, the South, that's where, I don't want to say the term, but that's where it went down.
Yeah.
That's where it went down. So I do feel a sense of resiliency in my blood from the people that had to go through what they had to go through for me to be here. So I feel connected there, and I also feel in depth to the people who went through what they had to go through on this land. So I don't have, a negative feeling about African American. I use African American. I use Black.
Yeah, I don't have a negative feeling about it. I never even really went in depth into the whole terminology of the phrase because she said it is an emotional and heavy word.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people do understand and some people are lost behind the term of it. Like when I hear African American, I hear African with a last name of an American.
Right.
You feel me? Because
right.
You're taken from your original to be given to something that's foreign.
Right.
And
a connection.
Or a connection, right. And I think that ain't African American is on your application?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people see that when they filling out jobs anyway,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what you're doing. When you see it on paperwork, I don't think people have like a sense of urgency to look at it and be like, dang, man, I'm African American.
Right. But
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in the recent, the last decade, there's not even African American on paperwork anymore. It's Black.
Yeah, it's just simply Black.
Yeah. And we received a question one day about, okay, so if I'm from Africa and I come to America, will I be African American? Yes. And I was like, you will be the true definition of an African American because,
right.
You're
as in America
immigrant,
and you're from Africa and they just put the two together.
But it's like, we're one of the only nations that are we the only nation that categorize people? You know, we're not just American, we're African American. Actually, I'm not gonna go into the other groups, but yeah, I just wanted to say that my grandmother
scattered.
Yes, slavery ended 67 years before my grandmother came here. I mean, not came here, was born.
Yeah, like that. It's not a wide gap. It's not far if you think about it.
Not at all.
People, it's a really positive term.
Yeah.
For some people, it's an opportunity to say, you know what, yeah, maybe I don't know where I'm from in Africa, but I'm proud to be from a place like Africa.
So it's like a connection.
Having that connection.
Right.
So it's a very loaded, I would say it's a very loaded term. So you can't just be using it anyhow.
Anyhow. So which is wodemaya is using it anyhow.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
No, you just said it.
I'm just saying, no, you have to be thoughtful. Anyone who's watching this video, you can't just be like African American, Black American, Black. You know, you have to be.
I'm actually representing a lot of Africans at this very moment.
Okay.
Because I've talked to a few Africans, even in China and here in Ghana. They don't know who an African American is. That's why I want you to answer this question for us, so that somebody out there can learn something from you, just like me, learning from you. That's how it is. So.
I mean, I would also say, aside from African American, you know, there are the people who talk about Black Americans.
Okay.
And I think we talked about this earlier, how, you know, you mentioned there's like an evolution of the terminology.
Yeah, because there was, you know, they were called Negroes, Blacks, then African Americans. African American has now become, as you said, it's like a deeply rooted word, gives them the connection of being African, and now that's the politically correct, accepted term. But people still say Black people, right? And then Africans tend to say Black Americans, because it sort of distinguishes them as that they're still Black people. We're still from the same roots, the same skin complexion, melanin, but you're also American. So I always found that people use that in a way that it's kind of like, well, we know you're Black, but you're also an American. So it kind of separates you from who we are as Africans, is what I have observed. I'm not saying that's what it necessarily is, but that's the observation that I've always made.
Basically, what she's saying is, it's like it draws the line with how they see the term of our ethnic. So it's like we're washed, because once you once you grow and develop in Africa, you have so much roots that original Black African American, and we can even put all three terms together, Black African American. We don't have we got to do research, and we got to do developments, and we got to see what's up, and this, that, and the third, but we are washed because of the American way. Right. And when I say washed for American way, it's not in a bad way. It's just washed from the idea and the knowledge of what's normal in Africa. So we go out there, we have to relearn what they already know is correct to do. Right. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense?
It does, but my thing is, history is history. You can't erase history.
Oh, no.
And I relate it to an adoptive child. An adoptive child is always going to want to know who birthed them. You know, who was responsible for
Unless that child has been properly lied to his whole life. Right.
And that's where we get don't call me African.
There
American.
You go. Yep.
You know, but my thing is, the ones who want to know, the ones like what I already said, you know, beforehand, it's like a lost child. Let's say if a child is lost, right, and something happens to that child's parents, and that child eventually finds the family of their parents who's deceased, right? Will you accept that child, or will you say you're not of me? You wouldn't do that, because at the end of the day, you remember who that child's parents were, right?
Okay.
So
we're gonna slow it down for the people in the back. You take an eagle egg and you put it in a bunch of chicken eggs, and then they all hatch together. And the chickens know the eagle is great by its posture, by everything about it. It sees different, but the eagle look at him and say, "I'm one of you," though he's not. And when he look up, he finally see who he is, and he's like, "Why I'm here then?
Why I'm different?"
And now he start asking questions to the ones who don't give the correct answers, because they don't want you to tap into what you are.
Right. So for me, you can't take that term away from me, because there was some people who is from that land, who I would love to know their personalities, their way of life. But there was some people who was taken from their land, brought to a foreign land, went through everything that they went through. They did not give up. They made the best of their situation. They survived. If they didn't survive, such heinous crimes, such abuse, just separation, just all of that. If they didn't survive, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't have children. We wouldn't be able to have these conversations. So you cannot take that from me. Because my people went through that. The people I'm descendants from went through that. So you can't just say, oh, you're not of me. To me, you can't. You know?
Yep.
Experience of what I see here in Ghana, especially. I get asked that question all the time, even though I was born in Ghana, but I grew up in Canada. I did live a short time in the U.S. It's always, are you a Black American or are you an Afro-American? I get that question in Ghana as well. You know, I get Afro-American, but I don't often hear Ghanaians say African-American. Ghanaians always say Black American.
Yeah, and that's also very loaded in a way.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, there is like that separation.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not African, right? Like I don't want to get
Black.
Right. So and it can be hurtful actually.
That is hurtful.
So
you just said you are not African. There are few Black Americans out there who hate to be called African. Do you know about that?
you are educating me. I mean, I will say that there are African Americans who have a very difficult, like I was saying earlier, relationship with the term African American because they've never been to Africa. They don't know any Africans, like personally, as in relatives or anything like this. Their perceptions of Africa are what they see on TV, things like that. And they don't want to be, I mean, even Africans here are trying to leave the continent because they don't want to be associated with some of that, right? So it's, again, it's a very difficult thing to say that someone doesn't want to be called an African, sure, but it's understandable, right? Like, it's not that I just have this deep-seated hate and I'm angry.
Yeah, and I've heard
it's coming from somewhere and going to somewhere with that.
And I have heard African American people say they don't want to be referred to as African. I have heard people there say, I'm not an African, so why are you calling me an African? And then there's a separation that happens, and it's because of, it's deeply rooted in history. So there's the people who will say, you know, I didn't live in Africa, like she was saying, I'm not from Africa, and I want to separate myself from what I see of Africa because I don't live, because there's a stereotype about living on trees. There's a stereotype.
Okay, so we did discuss about, you know, at some point we've all been told, oh, go back to Africa. We've discussed that before, right? And we discussed the propaganda commercials and seeing that image. That is what we see when people say go back to Africa. It wasn't until, you know, I was in high school that I really, you know, started to research Africa and African people and see, oh, it's not what I saw. It's not what they told us. They're not starving. They're living in mansions.
They don't need $1.
Right. And, you know, that's when I was introduced to artists like WizKid and Burna Boy, you know, so no, they're actually living lavish, living good, better than me. You know? So, but I was going to say, it's like, remember I was showing you something about the tree of forgetfulness and how they were telling the slaves to circle the tree 6 times and you'll forget your heritage and all of that before, you know, the transatlantic, you know, little thing. So it makes me believe that because we have this separation of Africans and African people, that the agenda that the people, you know, who took the Africans to the foreign lands, the agenda was accomplished. They created the separation. They created the bitterness between the two groups. The two groups not wanting to be associated with each other. Like, that agenda was accomplished. So how, as a people, do we get us to come back together? Thank God for social media.
Social media right now is doing it.
Yes.
Because if you scrolling on social media, you're always going to catch that one feed that take you somewhere you've never been before. And then you hear something that interests you. Man, social media, bro, the whole systematic thing about social media is like, you could make a mention about, man, I want $1 million one day in life. And then a freaking guru will pop up on your screen and say, hey, you want to make $1 million? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's how it be. So it's really like, I don't know how to put it into play, but social media does its job.
It almost brings me to tears. Actually, it does bring me to tears sometimes when we're reading y'all comments and y'all are like, come back home, and y'all are like, come here, come experience your land of your ancestors. Oh, it's the one that said, I'm sorry, I gotta read it.
But what's so interesting though, you guys, this camera is going to clip out, and we're gonna have to use another one because it's gonna be a long video, and it's fine.
Yes, it is.
It's fine. But what interests me though, man, is that if you really listen to a lot of these celebrities in today's, stats, they have already visited Africa. Mm-hmm. And when they visit Africa, they come back to America and say, y'all don't know what y'all missing, bro.
Right.
Like, it's not what they telling y'all it is. It's bigger than what it is right now out there. And they got so much stuff that y'all can learn. They got so much stuff that y'all would love to be around, experience. Like, the knowledge base out there is not what they're telling you out here. And it's like the luxury out there is just amazing. So they come back here and you see comments, you see tweets,
Right.
you see posts and pictures. You even hear the pastors say that they went out there and they visited slaves locations when it's just so much. So if the celebrities' intention is to go back to Africa as well, then I think they need to continue to pass on that knowledge so the youth can continue to want to know more and have to want to go back as well.
But they don't need to only pass down that knowledge. They need to, rally up the troops.
No, yeah, of course,
Our celebrities, they have the resources and the financial means to, to gather up people to go experience what they experience. Everyday people in America, come on, like, America is the hustle and bustle. You work to live and live to work. Wait.
Work to live.
I said that backwards. But
yeah. You work to live.
Yeah, you work to live, here. So people barely travel outside of their states or outside of their regions. Mm-hmm. But I was going to talk about the comment. I thought I screenshotted it, but I didn't. The comment that said, y'all are making your ancestors proud. Mm-hmm. Nobody else is doing this.
Look at y'all, man. I woke up to that comment.
Humbled me.
Yeah.
Because I still don't even know how we stumbled on doing this type of content. Y'all, we used to react to music. I still don't know how this happened, but it happened, and I'm so grateful because
our supporters.
Yeah, I've never felt so happy on YouTube as I do now, you know?
But this is going to be a long one,
sorry, guys. Let's get back to the conversation.
Talk about poverty. I know people Black American people, African American, whichever terminology a person uses, would refer to an African immigrant living in America as things like African booty scratcher.
Immigrant.
Making fun of them because of who they are and where they came from. On the one hand, you have a group of people who have made the choice to immigrate to the United States. Then you have the people who are there that it was through lineage by force that they're in the United States. You have this dynamic of programs that are available for African American people who've been there through ancestry, and then you also have programs available for new immigrants. So sometimes these new immigrants are able to access things. So there was a period of time that I used to spend a lot of time in Buffalo, New York. I was in a relationship with somebody at the time, but anyway, that's a whole other story I'm not getting into. So there was a period of time I spent a lot of time there. And I used to come across people who would get upset and say that African moved here and already has his own shop and already doing this, and I've been here my whole life, and what am I getting? And then there's this divide and this anger that why is that person getting what I deserve to be getting when I've been here all this time? So then you end up getting this friction that happens. So then you get Africans who say they don't want to be like African American people because they want to be, because they come to go to school, they want to get a master's degree, they want to get a PhD, whatever it is that their parents have come for them to do, they are trying to focus and do those things and trying to separate themselves. So you get this dynamic of some people, I'm not saying all, some people who want to be separate, they want to maintain their culture because they know their culture as African people. Their parents may be Nigerian, they may be Ghanaian, they may be from Senegal, wherever it is. They know their roots, so they're able to connect to something, whereas African American people don't have that direct connection.
They don't.
And there could be a lot of pain in seeing that, oh my goodness, that person has a connection to something and I don't. My connection is here. And
okay, so I have to speak on this. I have to speak on what we're taught in schools and what is now starting to change. So, in history class, we learn about, you know, how the United States have come to be. But when we get to black people, we don't necessarily start with the, not necessarily, we do not start with the life that our people had in Africa. We always start with slavery. That is the dilemma. That is why,
big fact.
That's why, you know, there's a debate about black people or African Americans don't have a culture. And I don't believe that we don't have a culture. I believe that the culture that we have curated has started from the people that we are descendants of. A lot, I don't know about up north, but down south, a big part of our culture is our food. And
it's true.
Soul food.
It's so true. That's true.
Soul food comes from our descendants, right? What our descendants was making with the scraps, and they have made so delightful and so delicious, you know. So that's a big part of our culture in the South.
Yeah. And music as well too.
And music, you know, and the way we dress, the way we do our hair, our style.
That what connects us, you know what I'm saying? Because
right.
we don't have like she was mentioning, they have roots. They have Nigerian parents are, you know, that they going to be taught by. But
right.
we have, not just to talk about our parents, but like in general with our black people, like most black people, they don't have that root connection. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of a lost way that they're walking when they finally come into these teenage age and these adult age, and then you have these distractions of media, and you have the distraction of television, and then you deal with these other things of life that just makes you feel like, damn, what I'm supposed to be doing here? You know what I'm saying? So
right. Majority of our culture comes from the struggle.
Yeah.
You know, we got to get it how we live. So, yes, we do have culture, but as for roots like centuries and all of that, no, we're not connected to our roots. But we do have people like the Gullah Geechees who have, you know, protected their lineage and their roots, and, you know, they're teaching their generations that comes up about, you know, all of the slaves who said, no, I'm not going to live like those people. We're going to move all of us over here, and we're going to preserve what we knew Africa to be in America. You know, so yes, we do have culture. It's just we can't go back. Well, we can go back centuries and centuries if we go out, do our research, go to the ancestry, go back to Africa, you know, and learn about the tribes that we come from, and, you know, all of those things. But we do have culture. It's just we had to create our own culture here with what we knew.
I think culture is wealth.
Yes.
Culture is success. And when you have a real... And it's so funny because we always come up with these new things about our own culture. And it's so crazy because we so quick to cancel stuff. So we would come out with cancel culture, and the next thing you know, everybody going broke. Because the money quit circulating.
Social media is a beast.
The money quits circulating. So when you have a real culture, you have success because people of that culture know exactly what they need to continue to provide for that culture. But for us, for black people, it's like when we have our culture, it's like we have food, which keeps us together, barbecues, music, we love to dance.
The cookouts.
The fashion, man, we stylish as heck. People want to dress like us. But when it comes to culture, like, who are we? But on one part, like, when you have a culture, bro, like, and I think they try to do it, can I say religion? Off of religion? Because, bro, you got a whole week. Like, when it comes to... that's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Okay, well, let me just go with...
But you got a point.
But let me just go with cultural. You will have success in a real knitted culture. I keep saying it weird.
Well, no.
I'm saying culture weird.
Culture.
Culture.
You got it right. You
I'm
just
saying it weird.
Culture. No, but another thing is, is the norm there for, what I have researched probably doesn't relate to all of Africa, but it's the norm to pass down things for your children.
Yeah.
When you pass on. And our culture is not always the norm.
And it's not our fault.
It's not. Struggle culture.
We wasn't born into the wealth class.
Right.
We was born into y'all know. Come on, it's
we
a
was
line
barely
of
human.
Exactly at one point. So
yeah.
we don't come into land. We don't come into corporations and businesses. My
Cattle.
dad or my mom has a farm.
Right.
We don't come into that. We come into cheese sandwiches.
Yeah.
Noodles. Syrup and bread.
Yep. So if you don't come from a wealthy family, it's your duty to make sure a wealthy family come from you.
Right, and it's never too late.
So,
yeah, it's never too late.
This country where they mistreat me because of the color. My connection is here in this country where they mistreat me because of the color of my skin. So there's so many layers in this conversation that it's hard to really give one blanket answer. Yeah.
Sorry. Whatever you're saying right now, I think it comes down to people that I talk to sometimes, okay? Like most of them, few of them will say that Africans hate them. Is it because of what is happening in the United States? Because you've never been to Africa, you've never talked to any African over here. Why do you think that Africans in here hate you? Is it because of what is happening in the United States? Like you just stated right now, like, oh, Africans are going to school, they are doing that, they are only shops and they are not or something. Is it what is bringing the word hate between Africans and African Americans?
I can't speak to hate because I've had people who say that they just like certain things or they have a sense of anger and animosity. But
let me make a comment real quick on my man's question. I just hit a certain age where I just came across a whole bunch of Africans. A whole bunch. And I never had one bad, I'm talking about like a bad experience with either group. Like, never had a bad experience. Like, every single one that I ever met or approached or I talked to, we cling. Like, we cling instantly, like 2 chains linking. Mm-hmm. And we just, like, the relationship was just automatically there. The genuinity was there. The happiness was there. The smiles. Like, when you see me coming, I see you coming. It was, yo, like, whoa, like, where you been type of energy. You feel me? So, I never experienced any hate between an African.
Yeah, I haven't as well, but I did experience, I guess, a racist gesture comment, I guess.
Yeah, that's understandable.
When I work with a lady from Ethiopia, she was like, oh, you're not loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's understandable.
Like, what you mean I'm not loud? Like what you trying to say? So it's just stereotypes. And I think a lot of it has to do with the media. But what I was going to touch on, what she was saying, what he was saying when he was like, what is the hate? Why do y'all think Africans don't like you? Or whatever Wodemaya had just said. It reminds me of, when they would when families will be on one plantation and they, would sell they would break up the families.
Yeah, they'll scatter them. Yep.
That's what that reminds me of. Just scattered and you come to, what's that movie? The movie of the girl who was light-skinned and her mom
I know what you're talking about.
Was a housekeeper or something.
Yep, she would sneak out. Would you go by her sister?
Her mama was darker and she disowned her mom, and when her mom passed away, she was just boo-hoo crying.
Was she the one that's in the house and her sister was in the field?
I think it wasn't her sister. I think it was
a friend, maybe?
The family that the mom worked for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I know you're
because she was passing.
Mm-hmm.
She was passing.
I know you're talking about.
It reminds me of that culture, when black people passed, and they were passing for, white because they had the better life. They didn't have the struggle. They didn't have the stigmas that black people had to deal with. That's what that reminded me of.
I personally haven't come across people who say they hate Africans or hate African Americans. There's been tension, but that's not with everybody, but there's been tension, not necessarily hatred, because still, whether you're from Africa, whether you're from Jamaica, from Trinidad, from the United States, and you have melanin in your skin, you are still treated the same way by the oppressor. You're still treated as, you walk into a room, nobody's going to look at you and say, oh, are you African? Or are you African American? Or are you Jamaican? They just see a black person. And if something's going to happen based on your race, it doesn't matter where you came from. You're all the same people. So in the end, even though there's this tension, you're still united as a people, as black people. And I think that's why people have this desire to feel connection. I think that social media has changed the dynamic of what people think of the continent of Africa. Because of social media, people are able to look and see, oh wow, that's Africa? I didn't know that's what it was. Now I want to see what it's really about. Whereas in the past, it was just, you had to believe what the newspaper told you, what the news told you. You know, she mentioned National Geographic. National Geographic actually recently apologized for creating stories that gave Africa a certain negative narrative.
Well,
so
I'll be. Okay.
Only had that in the past, but now because we have the power, Ghanaians here who share pictures on social media, people over there see, oh wow, that's what it looks like. Oh, it's not as bad as I thought. Then there's this desire of maybe I should go, which was why this whole year of return that the government is having is exciting. It brings people here to see for themselves.
So what are you going to tell us? Like somebody out there want to return. I know a lot of people want to return, and if you want to return, try and see me. I'm gonna give you the.
Are you immigration?
No.
Y'all want to see us collab with wodemaya?
Oh Lord.
I think that would be interesting.
I want that plate lunch he had. I need him to take
Rwanda.
me to one of these. I think that was the cleanest country.
Rwanda.
Yeah.
Kigali.
He need to take me to like over there. We need to go sit in the ditch and eat a plate lunch together or something, for real.
Yeah, so y'all know what to do.
That was just by the way. I'm immigration officer now. So, what are you going to tell African American out there? Not just African Americans, but the black
people in the diaspora.
Like, desire to come here. Do you have any message for them? This is the last thing that I want you to say. Any message for them? Anyone? Would you say something to encourage them to return, or something that they need to do in the process of returning, or something? You know what my question
I mean, I can give an answer. You know, the other ladies can also answer too.
Yeah.
My advice is just come. As a person of African descent, when you're a black person, the government has said that they've opened up the doors for the diaspora to come. There is something in the immigration policy called right of abode, which is intended to give people of African descent, black people, the right to return to Ghana and stay for an extended period of time, and to make the visa process less complicated for people of African descent. So feel free to come, visit the Ghana embassy in your country, figure out how it is that you get your visa to come, have a visit, and just come and explore. Visit the website yearofreturn.com and you'll see all the events that are happening throughout the year. If you want to plan your trip based on what's happening for what you want to see.
Yeah, to add to that, I feel like the reason why we've had these distorted information and connection in the past about Black Americans, African Americans, and Africans is because we are lacking that knowledge. We have not really taken the time to learn about each other, to learn about perhaps living in the US, or living in Africa, the slave trade. Africans learning about Black Americans, African Americans taking the initiative to learn about the continents. So for me, it's really the time where we want to change that narrative. We should start or continue to build on that knowledge. It's very important to get to learn about each other, and in order to connect well and to connect where it benefits each other, and to really have that bond that we should have, we need to learn about each other. And for me, that's the where we are lacking. And if we, lack of knowledge, my people perish. So once you don't know that, you will forever, the others will forever continue to tell our stories. I recently bought a book that it's a history of different countries, and Ghana is one of them. Unfortunately, I haven't read it yet. But there's power in knowing who you are, where you come from, and also about places where there are other people like yourself. Wow. So then it propels you to want to go and discover for yourself. For so long, other people have been showing Africa and showing who we are and showing, what we stand for. But in order for us to tell the true story, it needs to come from our own people. Yeah. That's it.
I mean, I will say on the point of education, what makes it a little bit difficult for both parties, Africans and African Americans, is the system that they sit in does not allow for that education to happen. So in Ghana, for example, I know, like, through my work with the ministry, that you don't learn African American history, right? Like, it's not part of the coursework, and you're not taught that, okay, this is Ghana's history and this is Ghana's history as well, right? Like that we sold slaves and that they're here and this is what happened to them, etc. And this is what is going on right now with them, and this is it cuts off somewhere, right? Or it focuses more on our political history, things like that. And then on the other side, when you're in the U.S., it's been a struggle to even get your American history to now talk about someone, and then there's how many of those people, over 50 countries, and how many ethnic groups? So it's one of those things, right, where you're like, where do I even start? But I love what you said about social media. You start with popular culture. And I believe popular culture is such a powerful force. People see, like, wearing African print or listening to Afrobeat as cosmetic, but when I tell you that is how America controls the world, isn't it Hollywood and rap and rock and roll? And yes, so if we're also trying to connect with each other, these are still powerful mediums to do that. And I think that there's an opportunity right now where children of immigrants of the biggest brain drain era, the 1980s and 1990s, are coming of age with social media. That is powerful. And they're coming of age in a time where they've gone to college with African Americans, they're going to university in China with African Americans. So that link is happening. And it's a make or break moment, right? Like, are we going to spend that energy being angry, which we're allowed to have? Yes. Or are we going to spend that moment being like, you know what, I was angry, but actually, what are we doing going forward? Yes.
I'm glad she mentioned that. Like, when you realize the time and the space and the season and the historic moment that you're living in. Mm-hmm. You brought this to my attention not too long ago, and I ain't gonna go into detail on how you did so, but you brought to my attention that, like, when you can realize your timeline and then you can pinpoint what's going on your timeline, it's more than just existing at that moment. Because stuff starts to come in play, and you be like, I gotta do something. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm supposed to be doing something. Right. Or, like, I have this crazy idea, and instead of running to someone to sell it, I'm gonna use it in the perimeter that I'm in. Right. Because that's what's probably needed for that moment. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So you just gotta realize what's your timeline, what's your season, what's your purpose, what type of historic moment you're in. And I feel like people can start tapping into what they need to be doing and who they can be helping or serving or talking to. The things that can be happening at this moment can be really astronomical. So.
Right. And education, we cannot depend on just schools to teach our children everything there is to know about the 100%. World, about life, about history. We have to educate ourselves so that we can educate the next generation. Mm-hmm. And don't make it bad.
Yeah. And she said that I think she said that the babies that was born in like the 1980s, they're growing up into the social media. Right. Like they finally kind of get introduced to it. Right. But then we have the kids now in the 2000s. Oh, Lord.
Gen Z. Gen Z is resilient.
There are the social media babies.
Gen Z is the ones that come out of high school and they hopping on planes here, there, and everywhere.
So if anybody... Well, I can say this. Yeah, if anybody should be really tapping into what life... what life is, it would be these Gen Z babies.
You think?
Well, and that's why I say I think I can say it's the millennials. It's the millennials because we kind of have that knowledge and that awakening moment that happened in history. Yeah. But the Gen Zs kind of like, if they're not taught, like if they're not put on game about what's up, then they're going to just be on social media scrolling every day without a care. Yeah. Because they're going to see this tool as, man, like, yeah, I remember growing up, bro. Like, I grew up in the social media age, and that was that.
Yeah. But see, as millennials, we're stuck in the middle.
We are.
We remember when the internet first came, and look at what it's doing now.
And who's impacted?
Right, and look what we're able to do.
We're watching the social media do its due, as
Right.
we, you know what I'm saying. So, and then we have our boomers.
Show me how to do that.
How you do that real quick? Hey, now you say, "Huh? You gonna FaceTime me? You gonna do it?" When I press that button.
Look, I can see her.
For real. So it's that, y'all. Like, we have a historic moment. Recognize the timeline that you're on.
Your purpose.
And then you can find your purpose. And then everything around you start to make a big dramatic approach. Because it's not like you're just here existing. There's things around you that's supposed to be, you're supposed to be, it's tangible. You're supposed to be doing something with it.
You're supposed to be doing something with your life to contribute to this life.
Facts.
Yeah.
Let's move with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opportunity.
Yeah. And I have to say, what you're doing is really great with your channel, showing people things. It's sort of like a connector between Africans and the Chinese also even understanding about Africans, you know, especially with the way that China is just all over this continent. That's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other conversation. But I'm just saying I commend you for what you're doing.
Thank you
as far
so
as
much.
bringing these stories
Thank you
out
so
and having
much.
this conversation.
But
Appreciate your time.
But I need to say, like, I'm really grateful for everything. And trust me, I just told Bridget that thank you so much for introducing this amazing, beautiful ladies to me. Like I told her, like, I think 1 hour ago, because when I started talking to you girls, I was like, wow, I have a long way to go. But anyway, nice to meet you. Your name again?
Ivy.
Ivy, I think I'm going to share her YouTube channel. You also have a YouTube channel. I'm going to share her YouTube channel so that you can see a lot from her. And then your name again?
Mama of Afro.
Black Yoba.
Yes.
Wow. And then, what? Nah, me. In Ghana, number one is a very hot name.
Oh, I can't wait to hear when he's going to say.
Your brand again, I'm so sorry. What?
The Queen's Closet.
Oh, wow. The Queen's Closet. I need to have the King's Closet.
You're invited.
What about you?
Brigitte, not Bridget.
Brigitte. It's my first time hearing that name.
Yeah.
And your brand name?
You have to meet Francophones more.
Yeah, because I want to learn French first. So
And then what?
this year I'm going to learn French.
My brand. I
Yeah.
am my brand.
Okay.
No, I forgot your brand. What was your brand?
I work for Refined Creative as associate producer, but I am my brand.
Oh.
She
So
is her brand.
Actually, I'm going to see you again. We're going to do a video together. Come on.
Why not?
Okay, so thank you so much for watching this amazing episode. And I'm going to see you in the next one. I am Maya.
Want to be
Yes.
sweet but short on.
Make
Okay.
sure you check out Wodemaya's channel. He has a great channel. You can see all of Africa, Africa to the world. I think it's his slogan. This is a nice video.
Yeah, good conversation. Much needed.
Yes. So, we know that we have, supporters from all over the world tuning into
Facts,
our
man.
content.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys so much. You guys have humbled us with your support, with your love, with your kind words, going out of your way just to, just uplift us and just show us so much love. We want to let you guys know that we're proud of who we are.
Yeah.
We're proud of what we're doing on the channel. Let's just continue exploring the world.
Facts.
Yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you'd like to support the channel that way, as well as our join feature to become a VIP member of the channel. Check out the description box below. We'll see you soon.
Peace.